evening. Could you please do roll call?
Sure, absolutely. Just a reminder to the commissioners, when I say your name, if you'll just indicate that you're participating electronically and also give the location of where you're participating from. City, county, state works really well. And that's in order to comply with our electronic participation procedure that the city has. So Pat Cannon.
Pleased to be here in East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Chuck Grigsby.
East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County, present.
Karen Honey.
Present. I'm in Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Carla McWhirter.
Present, participating electronically from East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Liz Miller.
Present, East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Crystal Davis Dunn.
Present, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Catherine Rafiota Slavinsky.
Present in East Lansing, Michigan, Clinton County.
Dasan Sardar.
Present, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
And Quentin Tyler.
Present, Lexington, Kentucky.
Thank you.
Yeah, quorum. Thank you, Shelley, for doing that. All right, we'll move to item 1.2, approval agenda of 12/2/20. Previous agenda, I'm assuming everyone got a chance to take a look at that. If there's no amendments or changes, I'll look for a motion or entertain a motion to approve the agenda for 12/2/20.
So
Pat
moved.
Cannon, move support.
Moved by Commissioner Cannon and seconded by
Quentin Tyler.
Commissioner Tyler. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Before I move on to item 1.3, just for me, it'll really be helpful if when you do make a motion or seconding motions that you just kind of do a little hand raise so I can recognize you. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult with the technology. And if you want to say something, make sure you please acknowledge who you are. I'll try to recognize you each time, but sometimes I may miss you. So please try to get in the habit of doing that. We'll move to item 1.3. Everyone's got a chance to look at the minutes for 11/4/2020 for our amendments. If there's, or excuse me, for our minutes, if there's not any amendments or changes to that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for 11/4/20.
Pat Cannon, moves approval.
Moved by Commissioner Cannon. Is there a second?
Aye.
Seconded by Commissioner Catherine. Thank you. Is there any more discussion about the minutes of 11/4/20? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 2, communication from the citizens. Do we have anyone on the line by chance, Justin?
Yes, we do have one caller currently in the queue.
Okay. Just before we get there, I want to just recognize pursuant to rule MCL 15.263 subsection 1, limiting public comment to 5 minutes is something we've done in the past. Is there anyone that would like to entertain that motion to stick with that limiting public comment to 5 minutes?
Make a motion.
Moved by Commissioner Miller. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner McWhirter. And is there any more discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed to the 5 minute? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. So we'll have public comment be limited to 5 minutes on there. Thank you. Justin, can you go ahead and let them in, please?
Yes, absolutely. The caller with the phone number ending in 333 may unmute and address the commission.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. This is Chris Root. I'm in East Lansing in Ingham County. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to comment on 2 things about items on your agenda this evening. One is that I really appreciate the continued work of the Use of Force Subcommittee on learning about use of force in practice in the community. I continue to believe that this is something that it's a kind of work that you're doing that's unique and that it will be valuable. And I'm one of the members of the study committee on an independent police oversight commission, and I think we'll really benefit from what you are able to learn. I also notice on your agenda that you've got plans to make recommendations to the study committee about use of force continuum and also about social workers on the police force or relating to public safety. 2 points about that. I think that's great. You know, the more people in the community think about these issues, the better. One idea is the study committee is doing a lot of work and will try to incorporate a lot of things in its recommendations, but you also don't need to limit yourself to communicating with the study committee. You know, we're not going to be making recommendations probably until April. That's how the schedule looks. So it may well be that you can make some interesting, have some interesting insights about social workers to communicate to the police and maybe the city council before April. And I would not discourage that, although, you know, the study committee will be interested as well. Also, the issue of the role of social workers and, you know, what should happen when people call 911 and where those calls should be sent is an issue that a lot of people are thinking about now. And if you could think about ways that you could let people in the community know when you are going to be thinking about that issue, I think you might, you know, find that there's some people who want to participate in that discussion and perhaps, you know, would call in. So I think it's great that you're going to create an opportunity to talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The use of force subcommittee, we have been doing our thing. We got some quite positive news when we get there about kind of some up and coming meetings that we have set up. And I really appreciate the recommendation. And I know that our mindset is to kind of really make some of our recommendations specifically to the study committee. And that's great. But I really like the comment about really just not waiting and maybe submitting that information to the East Lansing Police Department as soon as we get done with some of the different things, or even to council in regards to that. So I appreciate those comments from the audience. Yes, Councilmember Bacon.
Per conversation talking with Vice Chair Dunn, as far as the priorities, really that issue around use of force was something that we wanted kind of to be moved for, that as you work through it, that it was going to be something that would be presented to that team, the Police Oversight Commission. But that issue around, there was kind of minced together what she put there. The social worker issue was a little bit more, I consider that kind of urgent, around looking at that, looking at things around social work and talking with the vice chair. I think that's something that per Mayor Stevens and myself that we're really curious about, because the more you kind of drill down into it, those exact questions and around 911 and utilization and when, where, and how, and best practices were just there's a lot of questions around that. So that I consider that urgent. The use of force is also urgent, but we didn't want, I think per council, we didn't want to really handcuff the commission, but any findings and anything that we can bring forward to them, since as Chuck is well aware, and Dr. Tyler as well, they're still moving into what type of commission they're going to be and what powers they're going to have and that type of thing. So I don't want anything that handcuffs their powers or anything like that. So, but that issue of social workers, I consider urgent. So if there's a way to put some energy around that, that'd be great.
Thank you, Councilmember Bacon. Did you have something to say, Commissioner Cannon?
Yes, please. I just wanted to say to Chris Root, always look forward to your comments, knowing that they will be well-developed and thoughtful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannon. And thank you again, Christine, for your comments and insight, thoughts on community's perspective. Yes, Vice Chair Dunn.
Your volume is going in and out.
Okay, I apologize. How's that sound right there? Okay, I apologize. Yeah, I was just acknowledging the caller coming in, and if I'm not mistaken, the social workers were just hired last week. Is that correct?
They actually started Monday.
Okay, good. And thank you for your comments, Councilmember Bacon, if that didn't get cleared there. Any more comments in regards to the caller and her comments? All right, thank you. We'll move to item 2.2, to written correspondence. As you can see there, we kind of really listed some of the different things that we've been working on. And I know this was really put on here in regards to for our information retainment. You know, I know that was something that some of the commissioners, I think Vice Chair Dunn was concerned about, start collecting some of that information and having that data retention in regards to what we did. So we wanted to acknowledge that and get some of these things that were done and passed just recently on council that came through the HRC on there. So we were just really happy to see that work was done through us, and that work was continued and finished and approved through what the council did at their level. Are there any comments pursuant to those ordinances that we have listed in written correspondence? Yes, Commissioner Davis Dunn, or excuse me, Vice Chair.
Oh, thank you. So with regards to some of the ordinances that we were working on, I think it's important that we do revisit the language that was in the racism as a public health crisis. There were some agreements in there with regards to dedicating, I believe, March 25th as a day of remembrance, and some things too that the HRC, once we figure out what direction that we're heading in and the type of events and things that we want to continue to conduct, should revisit as a part of our plan and our commitment to uphold that resolution. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if everyone got to read through it, but it was some reporting and other commitments in there that we were kind of tasked or committed to do.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Davis Dunn. Did you want to speak to that at all, Mrs. Hardy, in regards to the final draft and where we got to, or just being open to possibly us even adding more to that, or how would you look at that overall?
If there are amendments or add additions to it, then it would be a new resolution that would have to go before council, if I'm not mistaken. I think that the document that I had the opportunity to work on with members of the HRC, particularly with the vice chair, I think it's a pretty expansive document. My comments about the document and this resolution are the same, that I did not view this as a ceremonial document. I believe that this is a moral document that provides a framework for us to move towards becoming an anti-racist city. I think that it memorializes this issue in a way that creates opportunity for us to have public discourse and to advocate for legislation to change so that we can truly be an anti-racist organization. So I think that the document as it stands and as it was approved by council is a document that we can work from, and that we can use to move the work that we're doing around equity and racial justice in the city of East Lansing forward. So those would be my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. I appreciate that. Are there any more comments in pertaining to the documents or the ordinances that were just recently passed through council, as far as the 1491 disorderly conduct, which happened just recently as last night? And it was a very good discussion, and I was happy to see that was done. Did any other commissioners want to speak on that, comment on it at all? I'm just really proud. I mean, I have to say for the end, but I'm just really proud of everyone on this commission being involved with some great work, some great change going forward in our community. And it's just amazing to be a part of that process. So any other comments in regards to those ordinances?
I'll comment. Chuck,
Yes, Commissioner Honey, please.
I understand Vice Chair Davis Dunn that it might not feel like a perfect document, but I just wanted to let Ms. Hardy know that as a commissioner, I support the final document. I think we had a chance to give input on it, and we can work on it forever, and it can never ever be complete and say everything it needs to say and inform every action. And so I look at it as I think it's a lot more than ceremonial too. I think it's very powerful. I read it again today, and I was very moved by it and inspired by it. And it doesn't preclude us doing anything. It doesn't preclude us, honoring days. It might not mention every detail, but I think it's a really, really, really good starting place. And I'm very proud of all the work that's been done on that. So I just thank you for that. And also on the use of force as well, just lots and lots and lots of good input and lots of energy and time has been put into this. And so that has my support too.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey. Yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn, and then Commissioner Catherine.
I just wanted to echo that I thought I'm 100% in support of the declaration as racism as public health crisis. I think it was well written, and I think it's the commitments in there are very important. So that's what I was just speaking to, is that to make sure that we include our commitments into the annual review and supporting Mrs. Elaine in her work as the DEI. And so, but yeah, I am full support of the document. And I got to review the disorderly conduct. I thought it was up for discussion for last night. I didn't realize they were going to vote on it. There was some words that were kept in there, but overall, what we had agreed to was captured. And so again, I think it's something that we can be proud of as we continue to, move forward in our work.
Thank you, Vice Chair Davis Dunn. Commissioner Catherine, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's really cool. After we saw the final version of the resolution, the conducting an annual review of these commitments. Usually a lot of new resolutions and propositions hardly close the loop in making sure that, the goals were achieved. So I thought it was really cool and interesting, and just something to think of as we, give new ideas and draft new resolutions, to always be closing that loop and making sure that the solution fits the problem and we're constantly addressing it. So.
Duly noted, Commissioner Catherine. Yes, Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, and I consider just both documents kind of day one documents for action moving forward. And I would encourage you, I'd probably talk to a few people about this, just really for the Human Rights Commission to make sure you're agile and make sure you're prepared for 2021. You can already tell, and I'll probably discuss this with a few people, it's going to require a little more. There's a little bit of a vacuum, and we've been able to get a lot of stuff through here in this vacuum of time here, but the interest in the things that are going to be happening around the budget, around COVID, around a lot of the noise is going to get sucked out of the room. So you're going to have to be going forward on anything that we want to get done. And I definitely talked to Vice Chair Dunn about this. You guys looking and planning out a little bit further out, what's going to be the 1 year kind of initiatives and that kind of thing, and really making sure they stay on our radar, because there's going to be a lot of economic pressure and a lot of other pressures that are going to try to suck the air out of the room. So it's going to just require extra help from you guys, and just in how you're organized and how you bring stuff forward to us to make sure it gets the proper attention with what's going to be happening around the budget and other things. So that was just something. So probably more than you've ever been. You have my unlimited support, but I just need you to be as agile as possible with the stuff you're bringing forward, and help us to bring those documents to life, for the community. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Bacon. Any other comments in regards to ordinances? All right, thank you. Yeah, so we got written communication from Marietta Gilbert in regards to the Dr. Williams Anderson Slave Lead to Freedom lecture series. It's something that I know I was a part of last year, and not to put you on the spot, Mrs. Neumann, but could you help us or help me be able to kind of talk about where this came from and how we've kind of really approached it the last few years or so, if that's okay with you?
Sure, absolutely. So for the past 2 years, the HRC has been a platinum sponsor for this, this lecture series. And it really stems out of our work that we started 2 years ago with Alex Hosey's paper that he wrote when he presented it to council about racism in our community. And really from that point forward, council passed a resolution. And in that resolution, it stated that every February that the city would put on an event, or at least support an event that really points out issues of racism in the community and promotes equity and diversity and inclusion. So we have had the blessing and the support of the city to be a sponsor of this program. It's extremely well done. The speakers are excellent. I've had the opportunity to attend these lectures. They're free to the public, and they really call for monetary sponsorship, and we've been able to do that. And they put our name out there, which is also a really positive thing. It's been really important for this commission to want to promote the name and the cause of the HRC and what we're about. So it gets our name out there too and supports this really worthy cause. So really, I think we're at a point where we can be a sponsor again if it's the will of this body. So I'd like to hear what you think about that.
Thank you, Mrs. Neumann. I know I attended the series last year. Does any other commissioners want to speak to their experience or their involvement with that, or back to Mrs. Newman's question in regards to how they feel about it? Yes, Commissioner Tyler.
Yeah, I'll just echo Shelley's comments. I've had the opportunity to attend as well, and a very well done program, and very instrumental. It speaks to, to me, what the mission of what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Tyler. Yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
My camera keeps freezing. Same thing. I attended the lectures last year, and I met Reverend Kevin Murrell, who gave a wonderful speech. And I think the work is so important. We had a great audience that showed out, and the work that I see that our body is doing around awareness and education. I think that medium, that platform, the series is a great way to continue that work. So.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Honey.
I just want to further add my support. I have had the opportunity to attend some of the speakers in the past, and I'm always blown away. They're really, really well chosen, unique. Every year, the 3 different speakers kind of bring a variety of experiences and backgrounds, and there's something for everybody. And I fully support being a financial backer and a sponsor of this. I know it's going to be different this year. Last year, we had the opportunity to meet some of the speakers, and it's probably not going to happen this year. But I'm hoping that with a virtual platform that as many people as want to be involved will be able to participate. And so I guess that's a positive of it being virtual, is that and I'd really like to do all we can to get the word out, because I think a lot of people miss it. And especially right now, there's not a lot going on. So I'd love to try to really promote this and get a good audience this year. I'm fully in support of the program.
Yes, Commissioner Miller. Thank you, Commissioner Honey, for those comments.
I agree with everything. Can I make a motion that we support it we sponsor at the silver level for 2021? That's typically what I think the level we've done in the past.
I second it.
Motion, excuse me. Okay, so it's seconded by Commissioner Sartor, moved by Commissioner Miller. Is there discussion? And I think Mrs. Neumann had something to say about that.
Yep, we've actually done platinum, so 2,500.
Oh, I'll amend that to platinum. I will always upgrade to, I'll amend my motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Neumann. Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
First of all, do we have a budget? If we do, that's great. Just didn't know. That's my first question. Second question is, what are the costs in this scenario? It's just that like the speakers' fees, because they're not traveling, right? They're staying at their homes or offices.
First of all, we don't have a budget. So
Oh,
this we will find a way to squeeze it out of the city budget. So that's a positive thing. Secondly, it is speaker fees. I don't know what that will look like this year, right? Being Zoomed. They also offer for members, they offer one ticket for special events so that one person from this commission will be able to attend a smaller activity with the speaker with less people there, which is kind of cool. So that's a perk of being a platinum contributor. Other than that, I'm not sure exactly where that money goes. Elaine, do you know?
I wasn't going to speak to where the money goes. I was just going to say that just as somebody who procures opportunities to bring nationally known speakers to the area, COVID has not knocked the fees down. I mean, the travel is usually is, you know, kind of a extra cost that you incur. Speakers' fees are pretty much staying where they are. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mrs. Newman. Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. And Commissioner Catherine, I asked the same question last year about like, oh, we got a budget. Oh, heck no. Let's run with that. And it's kind of funny because at the same time we were talking about our youth summit and money going there and this and that. And so, but yeah, I'm with everyone else. I second everything that's been said. And if there's if there's not any more discussion, yes, Commissioner Catherine, and then Commissioner Tyler.
So our vote is basically a vote of support that the city should do that as a platinum sponsor, right? The city manager and the city council can decide that that's too much money. We can do gold or we can do something else. Or they can say, you know, we have enough. We can go all the way to the latest one. After platinum, there's another one. So that's what we're doing, right? Like we only push that recommendation.
Well, actually, this would be a vote to be a platinum sponsor. City council does not have to approve this because it's less than a certain amount of money. So it doesn't have to be approved by city council, but I know that they do support such efforts.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to make
Looking at
what the process looked like and that we're not giving city manager Johannes more to do, but good stuff.
Yes, Commissioner Tyler.
I was just going to add some additional support to Elaine's comment that due to the current climate, you know, the focus on race, racism, social justice, that those speaker fees may even be increased. And then also it's our responsibility as the HRC to fairly compensate those that you know, to represent those populations, you know, due to cultural taxation, you know, the invisible tax, those things over and over again. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Tyler. And you know, this is something that I think will go straight to the consent agenda. It's something that the mayor has, you know, supported in the past, and so I think it's a no-brainer. And we're also just doing what we did last year, so I don't think we'll have any hiccups there. Is there any other discussion in regards to approving a platinum sponsor to the Slavery to Freedom lecture series? Yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
I support it. I'm just curious with Councilman Bacon, if with budget in mind, are these things that we should be considering, where we're contributing money or not, or how much?
I'd say you better consider it right now.
Yeah, should we be scaling back? I think that's to Catherine's point, but I do support.
I think it's important. I think almost like music, athletics, anything like this, it's the first to go. So while, you know, we have had a decent year, as we talked about around the income tax and other things, we're sitting okay right now. You know, who knows a year from now what we'll be saying. So that's why kind of it's been my point on everything. I think the timing's good to ask. And the answer is yes. So yeah, I think now is the go time. But like we said, that's why we have to be really just organized in 2021 to make sure we get everything across. And even little small things like this may be a little more difficult next year. So we'll see.
All right.
Right now, let's go for it.
All right.
Is there any more discussion?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor of a platinum sponsor for Slavery to Freedom lecture series, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries, and we will be supporting them once again for a third year in a row, platinum sponsor. And I think the process has been, Mrs. Neumann will send out an email in regards to who would like to be the VIP. I haven't had a chance to do that, and you just basically get in there and your thing. I think, as she had already said, that you'll be able to get into a smaller Zoom call and maybe just talk off the cuff in regards to the lectures that they're going to be presenting. So it's a great opportunity. I really encourage anyone who hasn't done it yet to jump on that email as soon as it comes out and participate. It's a wonderful experience that I think you'll enjoy, because if you don't, I will. So please jump in there and take care of business with that, okay? All right, moving on to item number 3, our guest speaker, Laura Genovich, from our city attorneys from Foster and Swift. I believe she's going to be giving us a small presentation, conversation, and then we'll be able to have our questions towards the end. Is that how it's going to work today?
Yes, exactly.
All right, thank you so much. You have the floor.
All right, thank you. Nice to meet everyone. I'm Laura Genovich from Foster Swift. We're the city attorneys. I've been a municipal attorney with Foster Swift for a little over 12 years, and I'm really enjoying working with the city. So it's a pleasure to be here and meet this commission. I was asked to speak generally to the commission's powers and authorities. So I'm going to do a bit of that and give you my big picture thoughts, and then I'll field some questions. So of course, the commission is a creature of the city code, created by the city code, and I'm sure everyone's read it, but sometimes when we talk about it, it's helpful to pull it up and have it in front of us. So I'm going to endeavor to correctly share my screen. And can you see that? Thumbs up?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent, good. I'm about 50-50 on doing that the right way some days.
Sorry, really quick before you start,
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask questions because I wanted to make sure I had a good understanding.
Sure.
So I'm a fairly new member, and I got a binder with several ordinances relating to the commission, and I don't know if they were like just kind of amendments or what, but there are, and I don't know if you can explain this, I'm sorry, but so there's like ordinance 130, and then there's ordinance 154 and ordinance 197. It's probably like 8 or 9 ordinance. I don't know how that ties in there. Some of the language is the same.
So my understanding, and Shelley can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the language has not changed. I know the linked version from your agenda is the one I have pulled up. I think there's another version on the city's website that's formatted slightly differently and just in some small spacing issues, but the provisions were the same. So it's my understanding that the terms have not changed in any recent history. Someone can jump in and correct me if that's incorrect, but that's my understanding.
Laura, thank you. So Crystal, what you have is kind of a historical perspective of how the ordinance came to be and the parts that were added as time progressed.
Okay, and so the one that we're reviewing currently is going to reflect the history of the ordinances that I have in front of me.
This is the current.
The current. All right, great. I have been combing through that, and that's where some of my confusion has come from with some of the things. So this is the current.
This is the law of the current, the law really for this, because when we talk about municipalities, the ordinances are the law, much like a statute is for the state. So this is the most current iteration of the rules that govern the commission. And again, because the commission is a creature of the city code, its authority and powers are derived from this ordinance, which could be amended by city council through the process that happens. And this is the version that's currently in effect. And what the city code does is create the commission, the Human Relations Commission, to implement the civil rights ordinance of the city regarding the enjoyment of civil rights and enhance the provisions of the civil rights ordinance as set forth in this code, which means in the ways that it's about to explain to you. The Civil Rights Ordinance, which I've got in a different tab, which is the other link from the agenda, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with, and I'm not going to read that out loud, is of course right here in chapter 22. But I want to focus on this section dealing with the commission itself. And section 2-362 is a very important part of the code in terms of this commission's authorities and duties. And it provides a list of duties. I usually don't like to just sit and read things out loud, but I think it's really important to actually go through these, one by one and take the 5 minutes to do that, because we all have a tendency, myself included, sometimes to just kind of scan through it quickly, and I want to spend a little time on it. So the Human Relations Commission shall protect and promote human dignity and respect for the rights of all individuals and groups within the city, study problems arising between groups or individuals in the city, which may result in tensions, discrimination, or harassment on account of religion, race, color, national origin, age, height, weight, disability, sex, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, student status, or because of the use by an individual of adaptive devices or aids. So that pulls in from the Civil Rights Ordinance and gives this commission the authority to study the problems that arise related to those. Number 3, issue reports and make recommendations to the City Council based upon its studies and findings from public hearings. We're going to come back and talk a little more about that. Number 4, formulate and carry out programs of community education by itself, the commission by itself, or in cooperation with other agencies, organizations, or associations, public and private, for the purpose of discouraging and eliminating any such tensions, discrimination, harassment, or prejudice. 5, review the status of social services provided to East Lansing residents, including the nature, quality, effectiveness, availability, and accessibility thereof. To this end, the commission shall maintain a liaison with appropriate local, county, and state government agencies, as well as private community service organizations. Number 6, make recommendations concerning programs and seek the establishment of programs that will provide a better quality of life in the areas of mental health and general health services, substance abuse services, and other services for the various populations of the city. 7, establish procedures to mediate disputes between individuals, neighbors, and groups within the city which arise from discrimination contrary to the rights set forth in Chapter 22, Article 2 of this code, which is the Civil Rights Ordinance, or any rules promulgated pursuant to this code, or from tensions or prejudice. Number 8, establish and implement procedures to receive, initiate, investigate, mediate, conciliate, adjust, dispose of, issue orders, and hold hearings on complaints as provided in Section 22-38 of this code, alleging a violation of Chapter 2, Article 2 of this code, or any rules promulgated pursuant to this code. And to briefly flip over in Chapter 22, it gets into the, scroll down far enough, gets into that complaint process. And we're not going to go into as much detail on that exact process here. It's laid out in the ordinance. Number 9, recommend to the City Council measures, including legislation, ordinances, directed toward improving human relations within and among the various population groups of the city. And 10, work with other units of government to meet the commission's duties and responsibilities and accomplish its goals. So thanks for bearing with me as I read through that. Big picture, I had a few comments I wanted to make. There are a few of these duties that kind of put a lot of independence in the commission for those tasks. And the examples of those in particular are number 4, which authorizes the commission to formulate and carry out programs of community education by itself or in cooperation with others. So the commission can come up with these community education events, implement them. My understanding is the commission has done that kind of thing in the past, kind of hard right now with everything being virtual, but there have been those outreach efforts in the past at least, and maybe now, I'm not sure. And then establishing procedures and implementing procedures for mediating disputes and of course for resolving civil rights complaints. Because you have part of your function, which is of course receiving and processing these civil rights complaints where you have a specific dispute between specific individuals that you are addressing. Then you have kind of the rest of the items that deal more with the broader, bigger picture, where you might not have a specific complaint, but you're studying or aware of larger problems within the city that fall within the ambit of the civil rights ordinances, like the things that the commission is studying right now. And most of those broader, bigger picture items fall into this more recommending type of function. So while you have kind of the independence on the community education and the complaint process and mediation, when it comes to some of these other items, you're studying problems and you're making reports and recommendations. You're reviewing, for example, the status of social services. The commission, of course, cannot adopt an ordinance that has criminal penalties. That is the role of the legislative body, which is city council. But this commission does have, of course, the authority to make those reports and recommendations to city council. And it sounds like you have a good relationship with city council in being able to do that. Now, what also struck me in reading this is how broad the scope of what you're able to look at is, in that it deals with discrimination and bias and prejudice in housing, in education, in public accommodations, in employment. So there's a lot of different aspects that you're able to kind of dive into and study and make recommendations on. It also struck me that the commission is not only authorized to, but charged with working with others within the city, working with other departments and units of government. And I see an example of that in terms of this commission working with the Police Oversight Committee and making reports and recommendations to them. And I think that's very consistent with the way this is drafted, particularly in 10, that you're working with other units of government, so other parts of the city, to meet your duties and responsibilities and accomplish the goals of this commission. So I think you have a lot of room in the ordinance to accomplish a lot of great things, and understanding, which parts you kind of do entirely on your own, which parts are recommendation, is a part that you can gather fairly easily, I think, from the language of the ordinance. So that's kind of my big picture take on it. And I'm happy to answer questions, address whatever else you'd like me to address.
Thank you. Yes, I think we'll have a couple of good questions. I can't see the commissioners. Can we jump back?
Oh, yep, sure. Let me stop sharing my screen. There we go.
Thank you. No worries. So I'll let, are there any other commissioners who have questions right now in regards to, yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
So not necessarily with regards to the commission duties. It is more so currently to the civil rights ordinance itself, and where the complaint process goes in and what our authority is under within that, that I have questions around.
Sure. Go ahead. More specific questions, or do you want an overview of that?
So if we can just have time to just go through that complaint process.
Sure.
Part of that would be great.
Is it okay if I share my screen again?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, great. There we go. All right, so now we're in that civil rights ordinance. Let me zoom in because I know it always shows up a little smaller. So this, of course, refers to the Human Relations Commission, and you are authorized to receive the complaint or initiate a complaint, investigate, mediate, which generally means, bringing people into a room together and trying to reach a mutually acceptable outcome, conciliate, which means something very similar to that, adjust, dispose of, deal with, issue orders and hold hearings on complaints alleging a violation of the Civil Rights Ordinance. And to pause there for a second, if we look back up at the ordinance as a whole, right, that's dealing with public accommodations, that's dealing with real property housing situations, that's dealing with employment situations. So complaints could arise out of a number of different situations, and those complaints can be made with the Human Relations Commission. So if we go back to that process, then any person claiming to be aggrieved by a violation can file a complaint signed, notarized in writing. So they can't just call you up and tell you about it. They have to, put it in writing and have it notarized, and do so within 180 days of the incident. And that's, a typical kind of thing you see when you're trying to investigate something. If it's, 5 or 10 years later, you might not have the witnesses, you might not have the documents. So the ordinance creates kind of a statute of limitations on when somebody needs to make that complaint to have it heard by this particular authority. That doesn't mean they might not have other remedies elsewhere if it's an older case, but in terms of what this commission can do, that's the time frame. The commission can investigate whether there was a violation of that person's civil rights. If there's no violation, then the complaint can be dismissed. The commission will make that determination and dismiss the complaint. I'll note, the commission is a public body, so any decisions being made by a quorum of the commission are going to be done in a public meeting. If there is a violation, then the ordinance instructs the commission to try to mediate the matter. You have to give notice to the person who's made the complaint and the person against whom the complaint is made so that they have an opportunity to participate in that. The ordinance provides that the commission, through court authorization, through a subpoena, can require answers to interrogatories, which are written questions, to order people to give up their documents, their emails, their other records, other materials that are relevant, to require the attendance of witnesses who will then have to testify under oath and take testimony. So it really sets up a situation for like a mini trial where the commission sits as the judge to decide what happened and whether what happened was a violation of the Civil Rights Ordinance. The commission is also authorized to help people file complaints with other agencies. So if, for example, someone alleges public accommodation related or transportation related issues, there are federal and state agencies that also handle that. The state of Michigan has a civil rights department that can, the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, that can receive complaints as well. So you can actually help people if you think that their remedy might be elsewhere, you can help them with that. If there is a complaint and it can't be mediated, it can't be worked out amicably, then the commission can, this refers to the MDCR, which is the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, for appropriate action. The commission may order, because again, it's a violation of an ordinance that the city created, and the city has given this commission the power to determine what happens when it's violated, which is a pretty significant power that should be, of course, exercised carefully and diligently. It might require rehiring the person, admitting them or restoring them to a union organization, requiring them to be admitted to a place of public accommodation, a whole kind of host of different remedies that might be appropriate depending on what the situation is. But the goal of all of these remedies is to make the complainant whole, where if they've been deprived of something, we're trying to put them in the position they would have been if they had not been deprived of that. In addition, a violation of the Civil Rights Ordinance is also subject to penalties like other violations of ordinances, punishable by a fine of not more than $500, imprisonment not more than 90 days. You're not arresting anybody and putting them in jail. This would go through, be prosecuted, would go through the district court, but that is in there as well. And any other relief that the commission determines appropriate. If you've got a situation where someone has a license that's been issued by the city, then the commission, upon finding a violation, is going to ask the city clerk, city manager, may or may not have to go to city council depending on the nature of the contract or license, to suspend or revoke that. So if you've got a city contractor who's violating the Civil Rights Ordinance, then that's going to be something you kind of escalate upward for the city administration to handle. And the commission is also charged with monitoring contracts, because contracts between the city and private parties, they do need to include certain language requiring compliance with the Civil Rights Ordinance. And so that's something where you can, I think the city, frankly, from my limited experience here, the city does a good job of making sure that those things are in the contracts. but the ordinance does also give the commission the authority to monitor that as well. So that's kind of the big picture of the complaint process. And I don't know, it's my understanding you don't currently have any pending complaints, but I suspect there have been some in the past, and maybe Shelley or someone can speak to practically how those are handled, but that's at least how it's set forth in the ordinance.
Thank you. I just have a couple of clarification questions. So when we jump back to subsection 2238, section E, I'm a little confused. So the course of investigations commissions through the core authorization, integration, and books, reports, records. So is that, I mean, I know, like, for example, in one of our previous cases, the union labor contract laws were really the things that take precedent over what we were able to do. Is that basically second to that process right there when someone has a complaint?
So union contracts always do have to be looked at, because the city may have agreed in some of those collective bargaining agreements to give priority to the procedures of the collective bargaining agreement over more generally applicable provisions. So that is something where you'd have to look specifically at the CBA.
Thank you. And that's what we experienced, but I saw that. I just wanted to just confirm that overall. Did any other commissioners have any other questions? I just had one follow-up question real quick. It's a really easy one. But for example, like, please forgive me. So let's say someone has a housing problem or dispute and they've been discriminated against because they weren't able to get in their housing, and they wanted to file a complaint. And I have two questions. One is, who takes that? Who has priority? Do we have priority to that based on kind of where that is, or does that have to go through the Housing Commission, or will we just work with them and get them the best advocacy when it comes to that? Because I know for a while there, the Housing Commission didn't meet for like 6-7 months, and we kind of got going. And so I just didn't know how that would work when it comes to a violation of someone's rights.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think you're right that you might have two different bodies that kind of have the authority to deal with that, and you want to make sure the person is getting taken care of. So I don't know definitively the answer to that specific question, but it looks like Shelley does.
Right, so Chuck, if it's an issue of discrimination based on a protected class and it involves housing, that is this commission. And we have had that situation. So typically, that's the complaint. If they were denied housing or denied an accommodation because of a disability, something like that, that comes before this commission.
And Shelley, if you don't know, no worries. But so then when would the housing be appropriate for them to go more towards that avenue as far as that, or would that just automatically fall to us?
So when I get the complaint initially, I typically run it by our housing administrator. But as soon, all of these complaints have something to do with discrimination, and the Housing Commission does not handle that piece of it.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps if there's a lease question, we have resolved some of these, because sometimes the housing questions come to me and they say, the landlord walked into my apartment. And I think it's because I'm a student. So I get a lot of information from them, and then I contact the housing administrator and they said, well, is that in their lease agreement? So we go back and forth and we have that conversation to see what that's about. So that there is some communication between housing and the HRC prior to a complaint being moved to the next level. But as soon as it's determined that there could possibly be an issue of discrimination, the HRC is involved.
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate that. Yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
So reviewing, because this is really what I feel like we needed some legal counsel on, is this complaint process. I think we have run into issues with requesting information from the city or whatever, and had limitations. And and for me, just to formalize that process, I know in the beginning that it says that it needed to be like a formal, written complaint, and that we also have the authority to bring forth a complaint. So at that point, as a commission, do we write then a formal complaint of what our concerns is? Also, I noticed our complaint form, there's a website for forms where people fill out this form, and I'm assuming that is going to HR, Shelley, if someone actually moves forward with filing a complaint. And I don't know if we have ever received a formal complaint, but just kind of really trying to narrow down what that process should look like if we want to be able to, I guess, utilize or enact some of our authority. So even to the point of being able to kind of like investigate and like subpoena information.
Yeah, so I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you.
Oh, no, and I was just, yeah, it says like through the authorization of the court. So just trying to be mindful of what that process should look like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can speak to that. I think that a lot of complaints, because remember the process is you get the complaint, you decide if there's a violation before you're subpoenaing documents or things like that. If you read it and like, okay, we think there's something here, we're going to try to mediate it, right? We're going to try to work it out informally. If you get to the point of wanting to subpoena documents and having testimony, then I would recommend that you probably get our office involved to do that. And I don't know if that's what you did with the prior city attorney, but that's what we would recommend. So it's not necessarily you directly getting the subpoena. It's going to go through our office because we can get a subpoena.
Yes. Commissioner Catherine, please go ahead. You're muted.
Thanks for that. So my question is on section 2, right, where we were at, where it talks about the complaint process, and before that, sorry, our duties as a commission. One of them is to create a process and of investigation. So we have to create, so that doesn't exist anywhere else in the document from what I read, right? So for example, if someone were to bring a complaint, do we have it in the beginning of the meeting, at the end of the meeting? Do we bring both parties to mediate and fact find? What are appropriate questions to ask? I mean, are any of us even trained to conduct such investigations? Should there be a training for such investigations? I just feel like being part of the student appeals process with MSU and seeing how that can play out, which is very similar to what this commission is in terms of addressing complaints. There's a very outlined process of how we do the investigative process. And I think there's a lot here outlined about the potential for addressing grievances, but it's very open to how we get there.
Right. So I would say, and first let me say, typically your establishing procedures isn't going to be so detailed that it says when in the meeting you have to do it. You know, we don't want to necessarily describe it quite that level of detail. And I'm going to rely on Shelley a little for institutional knowledge, but it strikes me that to some extent there's a process because we know complaints go to HR and then they're sent over. And I suspect over the years, there's been at least some process developed, but I guess I'd like a little bit of that historical background and then I can speak a little further.
Yes, so we do have a complaint process that details the process of getting a complaint. It's not to the detail that Catherine spoke to, but we do have a complaint process. The commission has that.
So my concern is in the investigation. In the investigation of that complaint process, are there any guidelines for how to do that whatsoever? Or is it a free-for-all? The commission just can ask questions to the complainant. And,
so historically, this is what's happened. The complaint comes forward, do some screening, determine that there is a complaint, bring it to the commission. The commission determines whether there's a possible violation of the ordinance.
Before even talking to anyone.
Without speaking to anyone.
Correct. And that's how the ordinance prescribes that it should be done. Yep. Again, you're not making a final determination that yes, but it was like, it's kind of like probable cause. Like, is there enough to go forward with an investigation, or is this so plainly on its face not a violation that you know, even if all the facts of the complaint are true, it's still not a civil rights violation.
Right. So based on the notarized statement from the complainant, as well as any additional information that I can provide from having conversations with the complainant, it comes before the commission. They make a determination, and it's happened both ways, where the commission has said there's no violation, there's no discrimination. And there have been times when they said, absolutely, we need to know more. So then I go back and I gather more information. So it is extremely difficult for a commission as a whole to do an investigation. Yes. So often I am the intermediary there.
I see. Okay.
Gather information, consult with the city attorney, and then bring that information forward to the group as a whole.
So it's very rare that the commission would have the complainant with us. What we would receive is just the materials that were sent through the complaint process, right? It's not like any sort of court hearing like
exactly
system. I see. So it's all mediated through writing.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. So that's what I was concerned, because nothing really here says anything about that portion. It's very specific before and after, but not about that portion. The other question, oh, sorry.
No, I thought you were finished. Please go ahead.
The other question I had was any grievance. So like if someone files a complaint and the commission decides not to move forward, then do they just try to escalate the problem, bring it to city council, to the state of Michigan? What happens if they want to appeal our decision?
That's a really good question, because I don't believe that the ordinance provides for an appeal to city council, in which case I think the appeal would likely be to circuit court.
Thank you. Okay, good. Councilmember Bacon, then please, Vice Chair Dunn.
Yeah, and as far as this process goes, Shelley's downplaying a little bit. During my tenure on this, we had absolutely a ton of this type of landlord tenant. This seemed to encompass so much of what we were doing in that time. They have she's excellent. How they investigate is excellent. She runs everything down her department and flips over everything and attempts to, get everyone's statements and collects all the stuff, and she'll bring it back to you in as much completeness as she can acquire. And a lot of times, even the victims or would be the perpetrator, or we want to call it in these situations, don't do their part or don't allow her to finish the investigation. So that a lot of the investigations would fall apart, but Shelley would run this stuff down typically between one meeting and the next and come back with complete reports and a complete rundown of what happened in the documentation, interviews, and all that kind of stuff. So you get a pretty thorough, if you haven't seen much of this yet. For some reason, it was just the era of it back then. We had a lot of it. So, yeah, they're really good at it.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember Bacon. And I would second that. For my little time with Shelley, she's, sometimes we have incomplete information. We get what we got, and sometimes she's able to get everything that we can get to help us. But I would second that as well. Please, Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
All right, I guess to kind of wrap back to my questions around our authority and especially through the court, authorization to the court. So then we'll have to utilize now the city attorney. And even to the point of appeals, I know it says that we can't limit them from pursuing other avenues of grievances. But say in this process, if we brought forth a complaint in the victim or on the behalf of a victim, and through the investigations, which I'm glad Catherine asked, because in our binder they do have a procedure for the complaint process as outlined. I think it was just a little fuzzy for me, is that I understand that the staff liaison helps record the complaint, the vice chair or chair can assist with that complaint. But then the next commission meeting, the complaint is brought forth, and then the commission decides whether or not if it's a valid complaint and if we want to proceed with an investigation. And then at that point is
I'm assuming Shelley goes through her process to do her magic of.
Right, and that's all authorized by the very first part of that section 22-38. It says, as used in this section, the Human Relations Commissions shall mean the whole commission or the designee of the commission, which may be a subcommittee of the commission. So the ordinance contemplates that it's not going to be a body of 9 doing all of those things, which, you know, gives Shelley that authority to do the good investigative work that she's been doing. And it's not, and there may be cases where the city attorney needs to be involved, and I'm sure there's lots of cases where the city attorney doesn't need to be involved, just like any matter, you know, for the city.
Right. So then if we found that a contractor, or like even to the point, I think about the incident that happened with Gacito and Anthony Lodgins. Like individually, before I was a commissioner, we went advocating for some justice for these individuals. I understand by limitations that through the HRC, we couldn't really ask for him to be terminated or anything through that sort. The city council or whoever city attorney escalated it to the point that they could, but nothing was really done. But personally, as like, you know, he's a staff member, and if we open up an investigation, the facts there that he violated protocol, procedure, conduct that was unbecoming, you know, through this court process, then could we still find a staff member under under their union contract? We have no authority to like really have him reprimanded or disciplined or removed. But is it possible that they can still be fined if they're found guilty of the civil rights violation in relation to their duty?
If you're talking about a city employee who's subject to a union, to a collective bargaining agreement, the collective bargaining agreement likely governs all the forms of employment related discipline that can be brought. So that's a really good question, but one that I wouldn't want to give an off the top of my head response to without seeing the particular collective bargaining agreement that someone is subject to.
Okay, so but if we, and to that point, if we go through this process and there is no legal, you know, clear statute that they violated, you know, the civil rights agreement, like black and white as is written, but we do feel like there was some disparate harm or treatment. What is the process? Then we go, so I mean, because then I'm torn. If it's a city employee, are they protected by the city in their union contract? Or can it be civilian? And then at that point, like the fine, because it says that we can fine up to $500 per violation. Like, who is that limited to? Because earlier it says, you know, public services, right? Meaning public facilities, department, agents, board, commissions. Like we can govern all those, right? But what is the degree of limitation?
So I'll say a couple of things. First, the fine and the imprisonment kind of goes to, it's like when it's prosecuted as an ordinance violation, it goes, you know, something that the city prosecutor handles. So I'm not sure that this commission is imposing fines necessarily, but setting that part aside and speaking more generally to imposing other sanctions under the ordinance, I guess I just reiterate that when you do have a collective bargaining agreement, that typically is going to have language in it that is going to kind of supersede, not all, I haven't reviewed these particular agreements, so I don't know what they say, but we would need to look at that to know the answer to that question and know specifically what the nature of the complaint is as well. So it's really not a one size fits all kind of answer, unfortunately. With any of these, it's going to depend on the facts, not just the facts of what happened, but the facts of what the collective bargaining agreement says.
Can you review under the complaint process, Article 11, where it talks about in addition to any other penalty or legal remedy available to the city of East Lansing?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Oh, sorry. I was asking if
I think she wants to look at, sorry to speak over you, section 11, paragraph 11.
Yeah.
Okay. So in addition to any other penalty or legal remedy available to the city of East Lansing or any complainant under this article, a person who is convicted in district court of a violation of any provision of this article or any rule or regulation adopted or issued in pursuance thereof may be punished by a fine of not more than $500 and cost of prosecution, or by imprisonment for not more than 90 days, or by both such fine and imprisonment. Each act of violation and every day upon which such violation shall occur constitutes a separate offense. The penalty provided in this section, unless another penalty is expressly provided therein, shall apply to each and every addition to this article and to the amendment of any section thereof without the necessity of providing such penalty in the ordinance making such addition or amendment. The last part means if city council amends the civil rights ordinance to add more things that would be a violation, this penalty applies. But this section talks about someone who's convicted in district court. So someone who's been prosecuted for an ordinance violation. So this commission is not issuing a fine or sentencing someone to jail.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get to the point at what, so if we if we took a complaint and we found that the grievance, violated the human rights ordinance or caused disparate harm, so then we just refer it over to the city attorney. What is our process after we've decided through investigation?
So it depends on the nature, because you've got like the housing discrimination cases that were apparently happening with high frequency. The appropriate remedy there may not be prosecution, right? The appropriate remedy may be restoring a person to their home. So it's going to depend on the nature of that. Or if someone has been unfairly discriminated against in an employment situation, they were disciplined, maybe it's taking that discipline off their record. Maybe it's restoring them to their job. Maybe, so it really depends, and the ordinance is drafted in that way to provide a kind of menu of remedies depending. So prosecution is not the only remedy that's out there. It may not be the best remedy that's always available. In some cases it might be, and in some cases that may not be what makes the complainant whole.
Right, and I get that. And so, because it was saying that under the complaint process, it says actions ordered under this section may include but not limited to, and it says, hiring, reinstatement, admissions or restorations. But then at 8, it's a payment to injury, a party, so at who then decides that? If it's not at the point of prosecution or
the other remedies are vested, the authority is vested in the commission. It's the prosecution part that is, a separate criminal process.
Okay, so we can require people to post notice in conspicuous places, the commission, about violations, where
the difference is those relate to, okay, somebody's been harmed and we can identify kind of the monetary value of that harm and we're restoring them, versus the fine and imprisonment, which are punitive, right? Those are penalties, those are punishment, versus making the victim whole.
Right. So I'm just trying to figure out, how do we enforce it? So, all right, we did this investigation. You've caused this person $3,000 in attorney fees or relocation fees, or you've caused, disparate harm. You've, caused them to fail or flunk out of a class because of harassment or, discriminatory treatment. And, so then we go to, it's the plaintiff, and then there's the defendant or whatever, and say, the total sums is $4,000. How do we enforce or ensure that person get their $4,000?
So if they don't respond to, if you make the determination and they ignore it, then you likely are going to have some city attorney involvement then, because then we send a letter on our letterhead. And if it may need to be something that's enforced in court, it may be a civil action at that point rather than a criminal prosecution, because you've got an ordinance violation similar to, not that they're alike in substance, but if you've got a zoning ordinance violation and your zoning administrator says, hey, this is a violation of zoning ordinance, and the person says, well, too bad. Well, then you might have to take them into court to enforce your ordinance.
So the commission then has to file a civil.
Yeah, and I don't know that it would often get to that point. And again, maybe Shelley can speak to the institutional. She's shaking her head like we've never really gotten to that point probably. But in that worst case scenario of no one's doing what they're supposed to be doing, we need a stronger hand to enforce the ordinance, then I think that's a remedy that is out there that's available. So you're not left powerless. There is something out there. Whether you ever have to resort to that is of course a different question.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at. I just wanted to know what is the fullest extent or limitations of some of these authorities or that we have here in the process. Like, do we start here? If it goes nowhere, how does this escalate?
And I think it's really important as well that the ordinance does provide for those mediation and conciliation options to try to, use it as an opportunity as well to fulfill your duty of community education and bringing people to the table and trying to, address the underlying problems, of course. So not that always works. I'm a lawyer. I know that, I usually see things when they don't work, but that, that option is there as well to try to bring it, to get to a place where you're making the complainant whole and hopefully addressing what caused the problem in the first place so that it doesn't have to get to that point.
And then my last and final question, we had the Brookfield situation where in their covenant, they had language that prohibited, sale or rent of properties to people of color. MSU incidents of their racial incidents with nooses on the door and and bananas with gorilla written on it or black, whatever. And the school through their process, unfounded, unsubstantiated, but people experience disparaged treatment and harm because of these incidents and it wasn't taken serious. Through this investigation, and I think to what Catherine's question was too, that process of investigation, and if disparaged harm or discrimination to that degree, if someone was to bring forth a formal complaint, how can we lodge a complaint against the school? What would that look like? How big would that get? I understand too about finding other solutions to remedy it, but many students have been left to just kind of deal with it. Like, oh, well, it was a joke. We take it serious. They issue a statement there, but there's been no remedy for students. I don't know. Commission sent a letter to Brookfield, but if, I think Liz lived there, I'm speaking for her, but if she wanted to file a complaint and have this truly investigated, will the city truly find the people that's responsible for changing these? I think what was from the Brookfield situation was that the way that it was written in law, that it was legally binding, that it could not be changed, that the discriminatory language had to stick unless a certain percentage of the homeowners or people in the covenant agree to it. So I'm just really trying to understand if we're going to be, if these are going to be our duties or our powers, to what extent can we really pursue real civil rights, infractions?
So it's a big kind of broad question, to be fair. So if you've got a situation where there's a complaint made by somebody who's subject to the city's civil rights ordinance, then you're going to process that complaint. If it's something where there hasn't been a complaint, then it may be that your role is more in some of your other duties in terms of education and studying the problems and making recommendations. If you've got a complaint about it, again, against somebody who's subject to the ordinance, then that's what the process is here for.
Thank you. Commissioner Catherine, please go ahead.
So two things. One, just to answer Crystal's question, I think that if the university failed to go through a process that provided any remedy to the person that had an issue with, the commission would have to file a complaint against the offender, not the university, right? So then they would go to the cause of that whole problem. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
Right.
So in this situation, we're talking about a college, right? And so if there were several students who wanted, this is why I joined the commission. And I'm sorry to kind of get off track, but really quickly, I joined the commission because there were several students who've had experience and they filed complaints through MSU, OIE, Office of Institutional Equity, and the complaints were unfounded. And so, and that was a 6-month process. And then they didn't want to go through that same process with East Lansing for them to not find that their experiences as students of color was hard to prove, that they did not experience disparage harm, and that their grades didn't suffer, that they did tuition or whatever experiences that they had. And so when I was researching what options had to find some type of like revocation or whatever, this human rights, the complaint process popped up, but then it was like, are we going to subject people to the same investigations, answer the same questions for the complaints to be unfounded? And so that was kind of the thing. So, and it was against the school. It was against the school. So you can't take on the whole university. Like, do you then take it on an individual, like per professor, per incident?
Well, and I think that Commissioner Catherine had a point that if you're initiating a complaint, the respondent has to be the one who has allegedly violated the civil rights ordinance. If they did their own process that resulted in a different outcome, I'm not sure if their adjudicative process in itself is a civil rights violation. That said, all of that is kind of hypothetical because these are based on just those limited facts, and you'd want to look at any specific case or complaint that comes through.
Right. Let's finally get into Catherine so we can wrap up our discussion. Please go ahead.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I had my hand up for a long time as well.
I apologize. I didn't recognize you, Commissioner Cannon. Can you please defer for a quick second there, Commissioner Catherine? I apologize. I must have missed you, Commissioner Cannon. Please go ahead.
Yes.
You're free to go, Commissioner Cannon.
You're calling Catherine, correct?
I'll call on you.
Okay. There's a question asked and answered maybe 20 minutes ago that I thought I understood the answer, and now I'm not sure. If a complaint is brought to the commission and we look at it and determine that there is no evidence of a civil rights violation, does that end that individual's interaction with the commission and the city, or do they have any appeal rights at all?
So based on my review, I don't believe there is a right to appeal to the city council, but any final decision of any administrative body like a municipal commission can be appealed to the circuit court. So it'd be the Ingham County Circuit Court. So there's always some remedy still out there, but then it's more an appeal thing. So it doesn't mean you're necessarily personally involved with it. You're not, unless they send it back to you. So I hope that helps a little bit more.
Yeah, but our interaction with the complainant ends when we determine that there's no valid civil rights complaint.
Unless a higher court overturns your decision and sends it back.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Catherine, you want to have your second question answered?
So my last question is, isn't it odd that we can initiate a complaint and also be the body that decides on how that complaint goes about, right? I mean, institutionally, this shouldn't be the case, right? So when we initiate a complaint, that's really Shelley bringing that up to our attention, or is it initiated by a member of this body and then adjudicated by the body itself? Like, isn't that a problem?
I don't know that it's a problem necessarily. I mean, I'm not sure there's anything necessarily unlawful about that process. Shelley, have you ever seen that actually happen with this commission?
No, I've never had a commission initiate a complaint formally.
Like, do they step out and not vote? How does that? So we have no precedent for that whatsoever.
None.
Okay, good.
So if it came up, we'd have to walk through that.
Got it.
Liz, I hate to put you on the spot.
Yeah, this has been a great discussion and very informative. And this really came from, I guess I should have said this from the very get-go, that we really wanted to just look at our complaint process and just maybe if anything, tweak it or get it up to date. Or maybe looking on what we did before and how we could have done better going forward. And, I appreciate you coming in and answering some of these tough open-ended questions, scenarios. I know it's very challenging, but I know I can speak for myself, have a very clear, better understanding of kind of how to go about the process. So I appreciate that. Are there any other comments that anyone would like to say in our closing with our discussion of our speakers here today? Yes, Commissioner Honey.
I would just say that we have this amazing process and a lot of really, I hate to use the word power, but we have the ability to really make a difference. But I mean, since I've been on the commission, we haven't had a single complaint, and I don't know, I mean, it just doesn't seem like this is utilized very often at all. And so my question is, how do we, get this information out there so that people know that this exists? And is that something that's worthy of a discussion in our energy? Because I think a lot of people have no idea. We've talked about this before, where to turn and where to go and where to begin. And I'd like to see this, and not that I want to see evidence of discrimination in our community, but I'm sure it's happening. And it's just, those of you that have been on the commission longer than me, how many complaint processes have you been through? Liz and Carla? Nada. You're saying not any, Pat? You've been on?
I think we did have one very lengthy letter from a resident of the city that was, I think, complaining about a neighbor that didn't seem to rise to the level of a civil rights issue.
I remember a couple, but they've stopped at various points in the process. Like none of them were seen all the way through, but because each time requires a level of investigation and questioning, there were, I feel like at least 3 or 4 in the last 2 or 3 years that have at least come to the commission for questions asked, then the next step, and then ultimately was unfounded or was passed on to a different, more appropriate jurisdiction. That has happened.
Okay, well, that's good memory, Liz. I just didn't know the history. I really didn't know. I know that I've been on almost 2 years now, I think. It hasn't been that long. And yeah, I have never seen a complaint come forward. So I was just curious about what this has looked like in the past.
Karen, if there's no complaints in the last couple of years, we could interpret it one of 2 ways. One is that everyone's happy in the community, or as you said earlier, they probably don't know that this vehicle is available to them.
Right. Yeah.
I would add, in addition to that, Commissioner Cannon, that when it comes to some of these type of complaints and some of the issues that people are dealing with out here, it is a very, very challenging deal to come forward because oftentimes, oftentimes in these circumstances, going through a process is almost a re-victimization or a traumatization going through that. And so it's not surprising within this kind of work that is a commonality. It's not surprising that, we put this blast out, we're available here, we can help you, we'll help you. And it goes into the ether. And it's just the nature of the sensitivity of it all. Not that speaks for all of it, but I just wanted to mention that as well when it comes to what we do. And I think it's our responsibility to be consistently getting our name out there, like we're doing with the slavery to freedom stuff, and getting our name out there. As we talked about having maybe, a Facebook page and having accessibility. And I think that's what we need to be focusing on in regards to that consistency of information being available to the public. So I don't want to hold Mrs. Genovich too much longer. I know she's been with us a little bit longer. She probably expected.
No problem.
We really appreciate you and we really appreciate your time. And if it's okay, if any of the commissioners may have some follow-up questions after we had a chance to let this marinate a little bit, can we forward those through Shelley to you?
Absolutely.
Dialogue.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really efficient way to do it. Get those to Shelley and she can get them to me. I'd be happy to continue the conversation and answer any other questions that come up.
Or you could just give us all your cell phone number.
If it's okay, is it Shelley and Laura, can I send you a complaint process and I don't know if it should go for the full commission
to determine whether or not if it's in our purview, or if I can send it and you guys can determine whether or not if this is something
An actual complaint?
Yeah, that the HRC could.
So I think you would send that to Shelley, because I think that's what the process is that HR receives the complaints and then it would go from there. I'm not sure. Certainly it can be sent to me, but I'm not sure I would be involved in the first instance for every complaint.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about in a sense of keeping individuals' name private and not re-victimizing them if it's not an opportunity to receive any real justice through it. And so that's why I was asking whether or not. And so I don't know if it's something we can form a subcommittee and decide, but I know we're going to probably need legal counsel as to what can be done.
Yeah, it's not a private process.
So, but yeah, all right. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for being able to be accessible going further as well. We appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Glad
Thank
to
you
help.
so
Hope
much.
everyone has a good night.
Thank you.
Laura.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shelley, did you want to add something?
I did, and Laura doesn't have to be here for this. I know it's been a goal of the commission and several iterations of the commission to really promote the HRC, to try to get the name out there. And I will say, as the contact person on those complaint forms and on those kind of messages we send out, like if you have a complaint, contact this number, I get probably one call on average a month, but they aren't from our jurisdiction. So they're people with complaints. And it's very interesting because I think it's increased in the last 2 years. So good job, I think, getting our name out there. They call, they tell me their problem, and I don't interrupt them. And then I'm like, where do you live? It's Southeast Detroit. It's not even in Michigan. It's all over. It's very interesting. And I said, I point them in the right direction. I give them the number for if it's MDCR, whoever it is. I'm like, you can try this avenue. Unfortunately, we cannot help you, but I give them a resource. But I definitely think that the word is like, they're seeing it somewhere. They're getting our information somewhere. So
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's encouraging.
Yes, it is. And I appreciate that. Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
Shelley, and maybe she said this, but outside of the local civil rights ordinance, the amendments to the current civil rights statute, and the clauses for disparage harm and treatment, do you know if that's still something enforceable for our commission? And I can talk to you outside of this meeting and send it forward, but I've asked these questions for personal reasons, and I'm so grateful for the time to be able to talk to, have counsel's interpretation of it. But there are cases, and I know there are people who want to file complaints, but kind of what Pat, was hinting at, either everything is perfect and awesome, or people don't know how to access them. And the other side of that is the fear. And it's that I don't want to be subjected to the humiliation, the traumatizing experience of having to relive what happened to me, who said this to me, and publicly now, And so, I want the people that I represent, I speak for, to feel like they do have means to take on organizations or whatever, and have their, have some restitution. Like, the university does not, in their law, their little clause for investigation, bias, disparage, harm is hard to prove. And it really isn't. If you're looking at impacts of grades and, distress and, it's like, mental health diagnosis because of these experiences, like disparage harm is not hard to prove if these, things actually did happen to these individuals, which there is evidence of. So that's the only thing I wanted to
my gripe, but I just wanted to understand if the clauses of the updated disparate harm and treatment under the Civil Rights Act still apply to our local ordinance, because it's not per se mentioned in there.
You're right, it is not mentioned in there.
All right. So moving on to item number 4, new business. If we're done with this discussion overall, I think it's very, like I said, very informative, and it's going to be very helpful if, in fact, we do want to move forward with our own tweaking of our public complaint process that we have in play right now when it comes to what was going to be on our old business going forward. So item number 4, new business, HRC 2021 meeting dates. We had the link of the 2021 calendar there and just kind of laid out our meeting times and dates on that. Shelley, is that something that we are just going to be saying that's what it is, or do we vote on it? How does that process work?
Yes, absolutely. So this would be the dates, the first Wednesday of every month, and we do vote on it annually. So if there's something that doesn't look right or doesn't work for the group, we can amend it, prior to finalizing it.
Shelley, you're saying on this whole list, there are no exceptions to the first Wednesday time?
That is correct. Oh, yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
So for item 4.1, did everyone get a chance to look at the dates and see that? Did anyone have any amendments they want to add in regard to that? So I'll entertain a motion on that because I would like to have a little bit of discussion about the calendar, but I'll entertain a motion.
Pat Cannon, move support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cannon and seconded by Commissioner Catherine in regards to that. And I guess the only thing that I really wanted to just ask about, and please shoot me down if you think I'm crazy, or if this is something you don't want to do overall, but I was wondering about our actual meeting time, which is 7 o'clock. If anyone would be kind of interested in moving it up to 6 o'clock. I've been meeting on another commission and we meet at 6 o'clock. And it just really is a lot easier to kind of manage that. But I know traditionally this has been 7 o'clock. I don't know why that 7 o'clock time is the time it is, but I know that's important. And then my second part of that is in February this year, we're going to have the East Lansing Police Department doing the presentation. And my experience from that is that really just knocks out our whole meeting for that whole entire month. And I was wondering if anyone would be interested in having a second meeting date in February for our normal regular business. And these are just thoughts. These are nothing that I'm, trying to hang on or anything like that, but I just want to get a feel for the audience about how you feel about that. Yeah. Commissioner Ahoney and then Commissioner Cannon, please go ahead.
Would support starting at 6, especially as winter, it gets dark earlier, and so especially since we do tend to have longer meetings. I'm fully in support of 6 versus 7, and I would also be in support of having a second meeting in February. So I support both those ideas.
Mr. Chair, I support the 6 o'clock starting time for a meeting. As to a second meeting in February, can we play that by ear as that date draws closer?
We can do anything you want, Commissioner Cannon. But let me just ask Mrs. Neumann in regards to the possibility of going to 6. Is there any other city reasons that, we may violate or get in the way of, or, when it comes to possibly entertaining at 6 o'clock start time?
No, it is a choice of the commission. When we add meetings or change time, something to consider is if another group is meeting at the same time, especially in the age of Zoom. I don't think 6 o'clock would impact anything negatively. Adding a meeting might be a bit more tricky.
Okay, and as if Commissioner Cannon has said, we can really look at that going forward. I just was thinking out loud, and I'm pleasantly happy to hear that people are kind of open to 6 o'clock because I didn't know how you guys would respond to that. Yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn and then Commissioner Cannon, please go ahead.
So my only concern about starting at 6, if if we don't continue to have meetings via Zoom, it will be problematic for individuals leaving work. And that's personally speaking, because I work on the opposite side of town. And I get off at 5:30. I have to pick up my kid, eat dinner, all this other stuff. So 6 is not opportune for me if we are going to go back to having in-person meetings, depending on how COVID goes. So I am okay if it's a temporary thing. If we, make motions to move certain meetings up to 6, I don't know if that's an option. Why we are meeting via Zoom, but I'm flexible with that. But that's my only reservation of changing it permanently. And then as well as like special meetings or like these second dates, if we can come up with a commission, like a second or, third Wednesday for these, special meetings a month that we can kind of like plan around, because I serve on other commissions and my schedule fills up pretty quickly. So it'll be nice to kind of like figure out, if there is if we're going to have another meeting in February or another month, if it's going to be like a second or a third or fourth Wednesday.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please go ahead.
I have a motion which may be the perfect solution to what Crystal was talking about. First, we don't know how long our Zoom meetings will continue, but I suspect it'll be for at least several more months. And if we determine that it's okay to go back to meeting live, then we can reconsider the 6 o'clock start time. And as for the second meeting in February, it might be helpful to get it on the calendar just in case. And then as that date draws nearer, if we determine we don't need it, then we can cancel it. So my proposal would be that we do meet at 6 and that we schedule a second meeting in February at a time you determine.
All right, so the motion on the floor, though, from what I understand, is now just really talking about the 6 o'clock meeting and approving that as a whole. I didn't include the February deal because I left it out of there. But so is there any more discussion in regards to changing our meeting times, whether Zoom, where we're at right now, to the 6 o'clock time frame? Is there any more discussion on that? Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
So even if it is on Zoom, does 6 o'clock it might not work for Crystal, right?
Right. I mean, it will present challenges, but I'm working from home. I'm doing everything from home. And so, but yeah, I mean, ideally I would like the time to kind of decompress and prepare for the meetings, but it's not about me. I don't know if 7 o'clock it's presented challenges for the rest of the commission. I don't want to be the other one like digging my heels in because it doesn't work for me.
Commissioner McWhorter.
Yeah, I mean, Crystal, I'm in the same boat. I would say that it's less of a hardship with Zoom meetings than it will be once we're back in person. But it's certainly still, that's a lot to get done in an hour, even if we're all already at home. So then I think, moving forward a few months, as those things, if the kids are in person, but I'm still at home, like there are still difficulties that would present for me as, as a working parent and being a member of this commission. So.
Thank you, Commissioner McWhorter. Is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor right now? All right, so I think because we have a couple people who feel one way or another, I think possibly it'd be appropriate, Shelley, to do a roll call vote if that's okay with you, so we can make sure we're clear on how we want to do this, at least going forward. Is there still discussion with Commissioner Catherine that you wanted to have?
Well, the motion is to approve, right? And then the roll call vote would be to approve as it is, as opposed to as amended to 6 o'clock.
The motion on the floor, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is for us to amend our meetings to 6 o'clock going forward for our meetings.
Okay. So could I just want to express my, I don't agree with that proposal. I would suggest 6:30 maybe to find some sort of balance between people that showed some concern and trying to start a little earlier. So I just want to say that I will not be voting in favor of it, and I would propose, if given the chance, another motion for 6:30. But be the question if it may.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment if you want to offer the 6:30 as an alternative amendment.
Robert,
so it's your motion, so you're accepting that friendly amendment. Please, Commissioner Honey, go ahead.
Well, I just in terms of the discussion, what I was going to say is the same thing. I prefer earlier, but but I can do 6 or 7, and so I would have trouble supporting moving a meeting to a time that's going to present difficulty for 2 of our commissioners. 6:30, if it's acceptable to Crystal and Carla, I would settle on. If not, even though I do personally, for me, it's not a matter of not being able to do it. It's just a personal preference. So if it were 7 o'clock, I plan to vote against it too, knowing that there's 2 members that already expressed it was going to be an issue for them. So
thank you, Commissioner Honey. I just want to ask Shelley real quick. It being not at 7 or 6 or 6:30, would 6:30 be something that's out of the ordinary for the city and anything like that, or we would be okay with having that friendly amendment?
We would be okay with that.
Okay. So the motion on the floor with the friendly amendment is to then vote on changing our meetings to 6:30 going forward until otherwise voted on. Is there any more discussion on that? Yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
For clarification, I believe the original motion was to vote for to move the meetings to 6 and the second date for February. So are we separating those motions?
No, we didn't have the February discussion there at all. If I'm recalling it correctly, we just talked about changing it to 6 o'clock and we left February off there because Commissioner Cannon wanted to kind of hold that off.
Mr. Chair, you're correct. We didn't discuss the second meeting in February, but we could do that as a separate motion after this one sails through.
All right.
Is there any more discussion in regards to the motion on the floor for 6:30 meetings? Okay, all those, okay, we're doing a roll call. I'm sorry, go ahead. Please, Ms.
Yep, Pat Cannon,
Yes.
Chuck Grigsby,
Yes.
Karen Honey,
yes.
Carla McWhirter,
No.
Liz Miller,
Yes.
Crystal Davis Dunn,
No.
Catherine Riffiota Slavinsky,
You're muted.
yes. That was a yes. Dustin Sardar
Yes.
and Quentin Tyler.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
So since we had that, then so do we then vote now overall as far as our overall calendar for the rest of the year now?
Could I make one clarification? The motion was to move it to 6:30 as long as the meetings were being held electronically.
Yes. That was my original motion.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for that clarity.
So then, Shelley, is it appropriate that now we vote just on the calendar overall now? As approval
Mr. Chair,
for dates and everything? Or no?
I suggest we add a second February date before we vote on it, and we'll have that in the books, and we have the option of canceling it if necessary.
So you have a motion to add a second date in February, Commissioner Cannon?
Yes.
Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair Davis Dunn. Is there any discussion on adding that second undetermined date in February? All those, please, Commissioner Sardar.
We have had longer meetings. I know that there are pros and cons in having a long meeting versus having 2 meetings. Just because of the fact that we have several commitments, It's helpful that we can have a date determined now.
I think so.
Being a shorter month, with even if it's 2-3 days shorter, it'll feel like your next meeting is coming up sooner. So I'm in favor of having a longer meeting as opposed to locking up another day. Just a thought, but I'm open to anything.
Is there any other discussion in regards to the second meeting date in February? Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
Mr. Chairman, can you just remind us what's the second date for?
We have an annual report from the East Lansing Police Department, and it's quite a substantial meeting. And it basically, from what my experience has been, it basically just takes us out for almost 2 months in regards to what we do normally. And I know some of the business that we've been doing lately, that would be kind of a big blow to the momentum. But again, I can go either way. This is really the will of the body of the commission, how you want to do that. But that was the reasoning behind me suggesting that in the first place. Is there any other discussion? So the motion on the floor right now, Commissioner Sardar talked about kind of really doing a longer meeting and having one. The motion on the floor, though, is to have that. So am I understanding, Commissioner Cannon, that you wanted to identify a date within your motion?
I think if we're going to, we can put it with the list of the rest of the meetings so people will have an idea of what's on our calendar for the year, with the understanding that if we need to change it, we will.
I'm going to ask for help from Mrs. Neumann because I don't know kind of how the meeting would, what date would be best for us to have as a tentative date set up with other meetings and not.
Exactly. That's kind of the tricky part, right? Do you have a suggested date that you'd like to focus on? Is there a date?
I suggest the second or third Wednesday in February.
Okay.
Probably preferably the second. Otherwise, that meeting would become very close to our March meeting.
Yeah, February is a short month. So our February meeting right now is scheduled for February 3rd.
Let's do one on the 10th as the second meeting.
You're identifying February 10th, 2021 for our second meeting in your motion.
Yes.
Okay.
And what we could do is call that tentative
Yes.
on our calendar. And that way I will check with other commissions to see if anyone has that date reserved, as well as if needed, right?
Shelley, as always, you have the perfect questions and answers. Thank you.
So right now, if I understand the motion correctly, we have a tentative date for February 10th, 2021 for a second meeting in February.
Tentatively.
Tentatively. Is there any other discussion on that? Yes, Vice Chair Davis-Dunn.
What was the concern about having a longer meeting on the 3rd? So are we, we're averaging close to 2 to 3 hours our meeting. Are we concerned that that meeting with the police chief will take 3 hours?
Possibly.
Yeah, it's my experience has been that it's been because you also have to consider, not have to, but I'd like for you to consider the fact that we haven't had a chance to meet with them for a very long period of time. And there may be some things in that meeting that we don't know that will take a lot of time within that. And then also they're going to be, I think, add another envelope of their presentation in regards to the use of force based on our conversation. So it's going to be a pretty substantial, fulfilled meeting. And I would imagine that after meeting for 2.5 hours, talk with that, it's going to be very difficult to kind of really have the commitment, at least for me, I could say, having another 1.5 hour, 2 hour meeting in regular business. So that's my thoughts on there. And that would be the reasoning I brought it up in the first place. Is there any other discussion?
My only addition is that Planning Commission has their meetings on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays.
So right now we have it tentatively set. So we're not locked in. We're just really kind of really securing the possibility of having that second meeting, hopefully. So do you want to add to that, Shelley?
Yep. So Crystal, you did a little research and saw the Planning Commission on the second Wednesday. Thank you. So that would not be a Zoom option then for us.
The 17th, that's 2 weeks. And then that's still 2 weeks to the next meeting. It's right in the middle.
Third Wednesday of every month is the Parks Commission.
Thank you.
All right.
So there's a meeting, if I understand correctly. So there's already one set up for the 17th, and there's already one set up for that 24th, I think, for that Wednesday. Okay.
Well, I would like to amend the motion. I understand that I'm not quite sure what you're planning for February's agenda. But I would like to amend the motion just to have a longer meeting. And just plan a longer meeting for February and March with the intention on getting whatever we need to get done, and not spending so much time debating as to what to do or what not to do. That's where we're losing time. So
there is a motion on the floor, and so it's up to Commissioner Kennan and how he wants to accept or not accept it.
I would be delighted to withdraw that motion.
Motion is withdrawn, and so we will not, as of now, have anything outside of what we have on the schedule for February.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep. And Mr. Chair, I note that this was supposed to be the quick item on the agenda.
That's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem having discussion and understanding what people's concerns are. I mean, I think it's important to figure these things out, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you expect. So no worries on that at all.
Okay.
But we can move on since we have voted on that item there. Is that correct? No one has anything else to say in regards to that? All right.
So
all right.
Item motion to agree to a longer meeting in February and March.
I don't think we have to have a motion for that. It just would be something that we would carry. I will say in advance, I'll probably adjust the agenda in a way that, it's hopefully user-friendly for everyone and everyone's comfortable with that. And if you have some suggestions when it comes to that time, I'd be more than happy to listen to how you would like to have that meeting conducted. All right, item 4.2, HRC 2019 goals revisited, prior discussions. I'm assuming everyone had a chance to look at our strategic planning report results. Shelley, did you want to give us some context on kind of really how we can look at this and what our options are? Because I'm not quite sure. I know there's a couple of things in there that I wanted to wordsmith. What is the process that we're doing with this document?
Well, I think that Chair Davis Dunn wanted to bring this to the group's attention for a conversation.
Thank you. During our subcommittee meeting with Commissioner Catherine, you guys can use my first name, Crystal. Davis Dunn just sounds like a lot. Commissioner Crystal is fine.
Excellent. Call me Shelley.
Meeting is that we reviewed the report, and thank you for furnishing this for us. I don't know if everyone had a chance to review it. If you guys recall, going through this process. But we saw that there was some priorities identified. And through my time on the commission and reviewing some of the stuff that we've been doing, the priorities that have been identified seem to be a good starting point as to figuring out what our focus would be in trying to center our work around those priorities versus kind of like, it feels like we're grabbing things out of the air as it goes. And to Councilman Bacon's concern of really, nailing down what our focus is and moving with intention, I think it's going to be important for us to kind of, again, try to plan out our next year really strategically so that we're able to capitalize on the momentum around these social justice, racial equity initiatives. And so we kind of wanted to get your feedback. Catherine, did you want to add anything? I know we had some talking points.
Yeah, I think just the main thing is, as we, now just figured out our plan for next year, is maybe having a little bit of a plan of attack of where we want to focus our energies, and then put in place either subcommittees already to work on that, as opposed to being an afterthought, or just point people that have that interest or have that experience that really want to, take charge and be the leader in these priorities. and thank Commissioner Liz for bringing this to our attention. As the newest members, we were in need of some more, institutional knowledge. So this actually, the goals of 2019 are awesome, and will be very well restituted and saved for 2021. That's the goal.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions or comments in regards to this document?
Your volume is kind of low.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, I mumble sometimes and my voice goes down, so that's on me. I was just curious, maybe it's kind of open-ended question. When I look at the duties and some of the different language in here, I noticed the word racism is missing. And I was just curious if there was a reasoning behind that. When I look at the duties portion of this on page 1, and it talks about section 1 and section 2, am I not understanding that? Is it appropriate that the word racism should be in that language, or no?
I mean, we weren't trying. We didn't want to go through and discuss this whole document.
I know we didn't want to go through it, but I just something I noticed. I just wanted to ask about just in general, in regards to the language.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
I mean, I think this was copied from the mandate in itself. It does have, I mean, race is listed as a study, rising among groups, but I'm not sure where you're talking about particularly under duties that racism is not. This is not included, but not to get off in the weeds. I guess in a sense of just trying to figure out what our goals will be for this upcoming year was just looking at our priorities, the priorities that you guys had set, and trying to figure out, determining maybe 1 or 2 top priorities that we want to move on and set our agendas around and our actions and initiatives around for the year. I think that's kind of what our goal was just asking how you guys felt about the priorities and how they were determined, and how do you see the work that we're doing now aligns with the will of this commission and the priorities that was set in February of 2019.
Understood. Thank you. Commissioner Honey.
I agree that it's a good idea. I enjoyed reading it, and it was nice to see. That's a lot of work that must have happened right before I got on the commission. And I think those are good priorities. I think that we got waylaid this year because of COVID, because I mean, the number one priority was the community education piece. And we were rolling with our coffees in conversation and our subcommittee with planning our February event, and none of that was possible. And so it's hard to plan, because we just don't know what it's going to look like. So I do think that the commission probably got sidetracked from what was identified as our number one priority, and that's just because of circumstance. But I continue to agree that community education and facilitating events, bringing people together, providing platforms for people to talk about critical issues should continue to be a priority. And I don't know if we want to. Crystal, are you thinking that we're having this conversation right now in terms of identifying our priorities? Or are you wanting us to think about that and put it on a future agenda item? Future agenda.
Catherine?
So I think that we are poised to determine 2 or 3, at least, that the next meeting we can kind of already have on the agenda and start formulating, and then identifying, I think, from the strengths that are also in this document is people's background and the variety of just kind of wealth of knowledge that we have here from different disciplines. So if we could already start, talking about what are the 2 or 3 that we want to focus on, and then who are some of the point people, either because of their experience or just because of sheer will, want to be heading off those initiatives. I think that's, I believe that the commission is poised to do that right now. If anyone else feels differently, just let me know.
So will it be helpful if we kind of did some a roll call, if people prioritize their 3 priorities, and then the ones with the most I guess, vote would make the list for us to focus on. And it's not to say that the identified priorities are not the ones that we're not going to eventually tackle. Ideally, personally, I would like to make a 5-year strategic direction for this commission. But again, if that's not the will of the commission, I won't force it. But I think it's really important for us to at least streamline our initiatives so that we are not overwhelmed and pulling things from so many directions and not able to really capture and tick things off to say we've completed this task, we've done this, we moved the needle in this area, so forth and so on. And so is that helpful to kind of, if you guys look through the list of it's 4 bullet points under priority. And I think it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 that was identified. Would that be helpful?
Yes, Commissioner Miller.
For the sake of time, since the 9 priorities are written out, could we email our ranking 1 through 9 of those priorities and have them compiled rather than having to sort through it verbally?
I'm not opposed to
that.
I like that idea.
Did you say something, Commissioner Cannon?
I said, yes, we could.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. So based on her suggestion, Commissioner Miller's suggestion, we can kind of do that process. We can, and just really make sure that as you email, please email directly to Shelley that information as opposed to replying all, hitting everyone else with your recommendations of your priorities and what you want to focus on. Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
Yeah, just to add to what Commissioner Liz said, if we could send, our 3 most, this is an arbitrary number. If anyone wants to send more, so be it. But also one that you want to be associated with or want to really be the point person of. So if of the 3 that you want to prioritize, one that you want to be associated with or lead, if I think that would help us help create subcommittees or just have point people to really lead the initiative so that they don't end up floating alone at sea.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine.
I maybe to help organize this a bit, why don't I tomorrow morning send out an email listing the priorities as well as the instructions, and then you can reply to that? Just to be clear, are the priorities on page 2?
Yes.
And you're talking about 1A, B, C, D?
Yes, through 4, yes.
Really, that's a terrific idea. Thank you for volunteering.
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Honey.
Can I make another suggestion? And then maybe in anticipation of next month's meeting, let's all come in with some ideas. Like, I like the idea, Catherine, of identifying like what speaks to us, what we want to be involved with, and maybe 2 or 3 ideas if we have of what that would look like. Let's just be thinking ahead about that and come prepared for that, because just to back that up and to be prepared for a robust conversation.
Yeah, and I can summarize the results and get those out to you, and they'll be included as written correspondence. So that's fine. I'll do that as soon as I hear from people.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley.
Bless your heart, Mrs. Newman. Shelley
No
Newman.
problem.
On that, bless your heart. All right, is
Mr.
everyone?
Chair,
Yes, please.
Make one final note in reviewing this whole document. It's quite impressive, and I think we should give ourselves a virtual pat on the back.
Second that, I was not part of that, and I was really impressed. I was very nice work. That was my thought too, Pat. I thought it was really comprehensive, and it helped give me a lot of clarity. I was like, after I read it, I was like, okay, we got some direction here. So shame on me for not looking at that sooner. I'm confessing publicly that is the first that I've looked at that, and it was really helpful. So thank you.
Save Catherine and I a lot of time and work because this is what we were trying to do.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate the document.
All right. I think we're going to move on to item 4.3, HRC Recommendation Study Committee, Independent Police Oversight Commission, and Police Oversight. And I think Councilmember Bacon spoke to this, I think, earlier in regards to, or excuse me, it was our caller, Mrs. Christine Root, talked about kind of really this really being a part of what was suggested in a conversation as well with Mayor Stevens about maybe looking at some of these different things and making recommendations to the study commission, but also or the East Lansing Police Department in the meantime when it comes to that. And that, you know, obviously, as you guys can read there, the force continuum was one of the policies that I think he really wanted us to kind of really make sure that was in alignment with the initiatives that were set forth with what was going on. And then the 8 can't wait policy that was initiated through City Manager LaHannes's realignment and revisiting policy agenda that he set forth here, I think this summer. So I just wanted to really kind of put you guys in aware of that and see if that was something that, you know, you guys want to incorporate going further as well when it comes to how we look at some of these different things and make recommendations going further. Did anyone have any comments or reactions to that, as well as the social worker, that I think Nan, Councilmember Bacon had emphasized about that being something that was important and should be kind of on our purview as a priority. Yes, Vice Chair Davis-Dunn.
I'm not sure if the commission got the document that I sent out. I did revise it upon our meeting with the city manager and the mayor and our liaison about what the subcommittee focus in our strategy of executing it would be. So I don't know if you guys got that. I think I sent it out. If not, I'll resend it. But I guess to the point of, there were some ask of us as well as a commission, as we take upon this work, to review the continuing force presentation that was held, was that last Monday?
Yes, that's correct.
And so I don't know if that video has been provided to us just yet, but I think at least definitely for the subcommittee, I know Chuck probably already saw the presentation, but Karen and I, have the opportunity to revisit that and make sure that we understand what it is that we are taking, taking on with regarding making recommendations on the force continuum. And then those of us with social worker, human service backgrounds, I think that would be really helpful too, with helping the city kind of shape what the roles of the social workers would be. I know that it came up in some discussion that they weren't quite sure how the social workers are going to be utilized because they're not officers. And so then we're, also looking at the culture too, and how they'll be able to relate to, officers that they're going to be assisting, and whether that is going to be through coaching and counseling and, giving officer other forms of de-escalation skills, if they're going to be, or if they're going to be out on calls or responding to calls with officers with, what Karen called the frequent flyers, that we understand that have some mental health disturbances or, issues and things of that sort. But I think it's really important to make sure that we review those videos or that presentation, and then be able to look over the kind of plan of action that we hope to kind of utilize to get this work done within the subcommittee, and still opening it up. I don't know if there's other people that's interested in the work. It's 3 of us right now to take on some of this as well.
Vice Chair Davis-Dunn, thank you. Yes, Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, the recommendations on the use of force continuum would be directed to the seated Police Oversight Commission for their determination of how they're going to utilize that moving forward. But any recommendations you'd have for them would be greatly appreciated, or in the research or anything along that. And then the social workers are kind of 2 separate things. I don't want them to get lumped together. You guys bring in your expertise from that social work area and making recommendations and that type of thing around that function that's being built out right now. It's a good time to, there's no guarantees that how the input will be used, but I think it's important that we have input on the social workers. So
thank you, Councilmember.
if I was prioritizing, I'd flip those as far as the timeline goes.
Commissioner Honey.
Just to clarify, Councilmember Bacon, you are prioritizing saying the recommendations on the use of the social worker would be more timely, more priority in terms of, okay, just speaking as a member of the subcommittee and from just, obviously, we're not necessarily experts, but I think we do have something to offer. So I do appreciate the opportunity. I think it's a very important use of our skills and our time. I think as we continue to watch more videos, more will probably unfold, but I can tell you that I do already have some suggestions and recommendations based on the two videos that we've already watched. And I imagine more will come out because I think mental health is going to be really, really tied in with a lot of interactions with the police. And so, yeah, I guess maybe tonight we can decide what format we want to use in terms of coming up with recommendations, but understanding that's a priority, I think we should prioritize that I would suggest we prioritize that for our next meeting and come prepared.
And then the use of force continuum, just so I don't want to handcuff the commission anyway while they're still formulating how they're going to operate and their operating principles. Right. So just more something for them down the road and how they want to move forward. But it's right there. There's a lot. There can always be work done on that use of force continuum. And I know you guys have already started on that process, but I don't want to give them something based on how they decide to operate that isn't quite functional for them, beyond a recommendation. But the social workers, I think that is a place for good input. There could be a lot of blind spots there because it's new to everybody. So I think it's a good thing to look at.
So right now you're kind of giving us like a free flow of just ideas, like, obviously within parameters, it all has to be legal, but this could look like how the social worker might interface with police officers and do some trainings with them. Also, this, like Crystal said, this could have to do with whether they're going to actually be out in the public interfacing with the community. So you're open to all ideas that we have right now.
Open to best practices because we're not reinventing the wheel.
Right.
There's best practices that are out there. And if you guys discover them or, want to talk to other departments that have had social workers and that kind of thing, and that discover there's a best practice or a glaring hole, I don't think that'd be any offense to anyone.
I certainly can speak to the role social workers play in my work, in my agency I've been with for 25 years. And I imagine everyone else on this commission, that is involved with social workers would have some insight into that. So yeah, that's great. Thank you. I would
just want to clarify, you're saying addressing this issue would be a priority, but it's not as urgent, it needs to be done next month?
No, not that urgent. Okay. Just to the best of your ability. I'd say that if there's two subcommittees, the force continuum is good to continue on that with the subcommittee, but that recommendation wouldn't be drawn upon for a lot longer, maybe than if we made recommendations around social work. They could be used a lot sooner.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you for that discussion there, Councilmember Bacon, and great questions, Commissioner Honey. Just to back up just a little bit, just in case you weren't aware, there was a meeting last Monday for the study committee that Councilmember Bacon and Commissioner Tyler and myself were presented, and they had a use of force presentation. And that's the data that I think Vice Chair Davis Dunn was talking about. That's available. That is available in our presentation. If you go to the website, I don't know if it's overkill for you, Shelley, to kind of have that available to us, but we do have that in public record for us to be able to look at for the rest of the body of this commission to kind of really get appreciation of that video presentation. Yes, Mrs. Hardy, go ahead.
And I just wanted to add that presentation is going to be done for City Council, I believe, next Tuesday. Is that the same presentation, Shelley? Yes, so it'll be available at City Council next Tuesday as well, a live version of it.
Yes, Commissioner Crystal.
So just for the record and clarification from the meeting that we had with the city manager, Councilman Bacon and Mayor Stevens, the agreements that we had was that the subcommittee was going to watch the presentation by the deputy chief, and that the video was going to be cut and made available for the HRC as a whole, so that they can watch independently. And then as well, they agree that we can watch for pending
videos or reports that was on the previous list, and that we will tackle the use of force continuum and the 8 can't wait and how that ties into it. So just to be clear about what the objectives are and what it is that we're going to be doing, I did send an email to Shelley with those agreements from that meeting and the proposed actions and that you, Chair Grisby and Karen, Commissioner Karen, that we did discuss as to what our approach will be as a subcommittee and how reporting back out to the larger commission and moving that out as a resolution to, and I guess Councilman Bacon can have to clarify this, will it then go to a resolution to council to the study committee, or will it go straight to the study committee? I think we can cross that bridge once we get there, but it's laid out in the document that I just sent to Shelley. But we have 4 agreements, and those are the agreements that I think we should stick to on top of the prioritizing recommendations for the use of social workers. So I sent that out I just sent it out to Shelley, and so the rest of the commission have it so that we're not lost. But we have 4 agreements with the city and the city council, and I think that's what we should adhere to and stick to and prioritize as a subcommittee and this commission.
Thank you. Did you want to respond, Councilman Bacon, or were you good on that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure the language is clear. I think the use of force continuum report or whatever's done out of that work would be going to the full seated independent commission at that point, whatever, not even to the study commission. But so that's why I'm delinking them and flipping them around, because we have more time. Obviously, we're going out that far, but whatever we need to do between now and then to get the information as far as to work through that. But if you're going to prioritize them, just flip them around.
Got it.
I think the social worker is more relevant at the moment.
Any other discussions? All right, we'll move on to item 5, staff reports, City Councilman Bacon.
Yeah, first of all, just thank you guys for all the work on the code, that type of code work that you guys did as a group for the Disturbing the Peace was excellent. It turned out really well. I think everyone's, we never want to let perfect get in the way of good. I think it turned out very good. And it is much cleaner, much more simplified. And there's a lot of areas in code in the city that, are going to require that same type of scrutiny and walking through and debate and that kind of thing, because there's a lot of old stuff in there across the board. So we appreciate all the work and the time and effort it takes to do that. And just know that you guys are pulling in the right direction. And just like I said before, just get hyper-focused here for 2021 on the stuff and the recommendations from the chair and vice chair on just how to organize everything and just keep everything very concise and make sure we can get stuff on the agendas and things that are operational and we can get done. Because I just when we're having this conversation a year from now, just I don't want to say I told y'all, but we know the vice is coming, so we gotta hustle up and keep moving these agenda items through while we have the will to get them done. So that was it. Thank you guys for all that work.
Thank you, Councilmember Bacon. Yes, item 5.2, staff liaison comments. Mrs. Hardy or Mrs. Neumann?
I have nothing to share. Elaine?
I have nothing either.
All right, thank you, lady. All right, committee reports. Do we have an update for the use of force subcommittee that we haven't already shared so far? I think we kind of hit that on the head there just in our earlier discussion. Item 6.2, orders review subcommittee. You guys have anything to report outside of what? And then 6.3, study committee on independent police oversight update. Commissioner Tyler, do you want to speak or Councilmember Bacon speak on any updates from the study committee about our last meeting or so?
Yeah, I'll say just a couple comments. I think initially it took us a while to get started. Again, the comment that Councilman Bacon just mentioned, I think we were reaching for the stars, but I think we have an excellent framework in place based on the last meeting. We have a framework. We looked at best practices. There's 2 subcommittee reports looking at best practices and also doing a framework. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I feel really good about the progress that's being made.
Thank you, Commissioner Tyler, and I second that. And we've got some great subcommittee work done in the meantime. And then Commissioner Tyler stepped up. He's going to help us with the first part of our draft of our whole work plan and the presentation of our report. And we're just excited about the momentum we have going on with that. I'll move on.
I'm glad that you reminded me of that, Chuck. I almost forgot about it. So I appreciate you reminding me of that.
Well, I got your back. I got your back. And if you need any help, let me know. I'd be more than happy to assist you. But I think you got that handled. Any other comments in regards to our committee reports? I'll move on. All right. So commissioner concerns. Does anyone have anything they want to bring to the table to the commission overall? All right. So I just got a couple things, and I promise, guys, I'll be really, really quick. I didn't realize we were going to have such a long meeting tonight, but I wanted to start off by acknowledging everyone who's been working so diligently for the last 12 months. I know you guys have been doing this so long before that. I hate to be cheesy here, but I just really appreciate you guys and your commitment. It's just an honor to be a part of what you're doing and being a part of the progress. That's with staff as well, Elaine and Shelley and Councilmember Bacon, and just being a part of so much work that has been done with these new ordinances and resolutions that's been put forth to the community on behalf of the community. And that was one of my number one reasons, was to be part of something that was bigger than myself when it came to the HRC. And I just am honored to serve with you guys overall. I also wanted to say, yesterday in history, December 1st, 1955, there was the seamstress named Rosa Parks, AKA the mother of the Civil Rights Movement, was jailed for refusing to give up her seat on a public bus to a white man, which was a violation of the city of Montgomery's racial segregation laws, and just really putting things in perspective, why we're doing what we do, and just the part of history that we're connected to. That just was yesterday, the anniversary of that. And that was a whole movement that really had a tremendous amount of change for our community and our society. And lastly, we had talked just real briefly in regard to having collaborations and really doing something as a community event. And I know we're kind of strapped with some different things, but I did talk with Council Member Jessie Gregg, and she had introduced an idea for us to join forces with the Art Commission and possibly do some things in regards to having some art recommendations or some projects that really are associated with the inclusion of everyone that does live in this community. So I was really excited to get that call from her and talk with her. I might be having a discussion with the chair of the Arts Commission here in the near future going for next year. And so I just wanted to let you know that was one of the small things that I was talking about with someone, as far as maybe a community event that we can all be a part of and join forces with another commission. But that's all I had. Did anyone else have anything else before we move on to adjournment? Yes, Vice Chair Davis Dunn.
I hate to, my apologies. I wish I would have mentioned this prior to that, but thank you for sharing that historic fact with regards to the civil rights movement and why we're here doing the work. But I am just harping on concerns about structures and processes, noticing, as I'm formulating and noticing different kind of gaps or areas of opportunities for us. On our contact list, commission list, there are several individuals with terms that are ending, that ends as of December 31st, 2020. And so I don't know what that process is. Typically in other commissions and boards I sit on, if you are able to be reinstated, typically 90 days prior to you submit an application, it goes before council for you to be then reappointed. I don't know where we are, but according to those dates, we will be losing 3 commissioners as of after this month.
Thank you, Vice Chair Davis. Shelley she's already on that. She can kind of update you the process. She's sent some emails out in regards to that. Can you please, Shelley, address that?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, all three commissioners have indicated they're interested in being reappointed, and they'll be on the next council agenda for approval.
All right, I'll move to item number 8, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion if we are all done. Before we go, I just want to say I want to wish everyone happy holidays, safe holidays, stay healthy. We'll be revisiting this here in 2021, so hopefully we'll be on the up end of a lot of what we've been having going on for the last 8-9 months in regards to our situation. And again, I'm just happy to be with you guys. Is there anyone who is going to entertain a motion for adjournment? Moved by Commissioner Miller and seconded by Commissioner Catherine. Any discussion on that? Again, thank you guys. We are dismissed. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Have a good evening. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Nice job,
Good
Chuck.
night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.